Happy New Year to you all. This is the first episode of 2024 and I'm bringing it to you in partnership with the Talent Hub from Ulster University. And I have to say, like the very first podcast I ever did, just to give you context, I forgot to press record. And now the Dig podcast is going live at Ulster University, interviewing one of the biggest employers in the country and in front of all of the talent in Ulster University. And I just took a moment when I was there to look around and think the only way to really learn how to do something is to take action and do it and learn from your mistakes. And I said that to the students that were pitching that day at the Talent Hub. And yeah, I just want to say the Talent Hub's doing an amazing job. They're helping to cultivate like talent and giving people confidence and skills when they go out into the world of work. And do you know what? I think that's more important than anything. Being able to speak with confidence and pitch yourself and your ideas. Like everybody needs those skills when they go into the world of work. And I know I didn't have them when I left university. So it's amazing to see Ulster University do this. The Talent Hub in particular helping to just embrace those students and show them that they can do this. So thank you to them for sponsoring the Dig podcast on this episode. And I can't wait for you to hear from my guest today, which is Greg McCann, who is the Executive Director of Fintru. Fintru are the core partner for the Talent Hub, and they too believe that you have to look after your people. You have to cultivate the team that are around you and inspire them to be the best they can be. I can't wait for you to hear from Greg.
Thank you so much for welcoming the Dig podcast here to Ulster University. What an honour. And I'm going to introduce my great guest here who I don't think he knows what to expect, but it's going to be okay. The Dig podcast has never gone live in Ulster University. Actually, when I was sitting listening to you all, I was thinking, my goodness, when I first did my first podcast, I forgot to press record with the guest, and we were 3/4 of the way through and I had to start again. So I guess if anyone's sitting there and they're thinking, I didn't do what I should have, even though everyone was amazing, there's always, you just grow from every opportunity. So the fact that the Talent Hub has set this all up today is incredible, and I thought everybody was unreal. So fair play to everybody that did their pitches. And we all forget at times to say the right things or press record like I did, but it's all about experience and learning from it. So excellent opportunity for everybody here today. So welcome to the Dig podcast live podcast here. An absolute honour. The Talent Hub, like I have to say, I didn't really know what the Talent Hub did before I was asked to be here, so a great learning for me as well. But to show what you guys are doing with connecting like ambitious and talented students with the northwest area is I just think there's so much learning for other like education organisations and also other businesses to be doing this like collaboration thing. It's just so exciting. It definitely wasn't in place when I was here, and I was at Jordanstown actually, but I just think it's fabulous. So what is the Talent Hub? So you guys know, but everybody is listening to the Dig podcast, which is, we've almost 250,000 downloads at the minute. So there's a lot of people going to be listening to this. They're like, what the hell is the Talent Hub? And what is this that's going on? So basically, for those who are listening on the Dig podcast, the Talent Hub supports students in that transition from education into the working world. And like when I was listening to you all, I was thinking about when I was at university and my first job interview in the Belfast City Hospital. I was an occupational therapist, and I was like, hadn't a clue, I was so scared and so nervous, and I don't think I'd ever had this opportunity to like gain confidence. So like the value in the Talent Hub is unbelievable, and it can be a daunting thing, I know, but the Talent Hub empowers students with skills, knowledge and networking opportunities, which is just like crucial. So I think it's amazing, and I'm so grateful to them. And I know the Talent Hub are so grateful to their core partner, Fintru, who helps support them in their mission to create a talent pipeline in the northwest region. I thought that was really good when I was researching that line, a talent pipeline. It's incredible what you guys are doing. So today I'm joined on the Dig podcast with Greg McCann, who is Executive Director of Fintru, and also recently named as the President of Derry, Derry Chamber of Commerce, which is fantastic. I know everybody in the Chamber are so excited to have him as President. And I was doing some research on Greg before. I was on his LinkedIn and I was stalking him everywhere to see what I could read about him. And what a man, and I couldn't even do it justice to talk about all the things that he's done, but he has over 25 years of experience in financial services with a background in business banking, retail banking and global investment banking. And when we were setting up there, I said, and he's a money laundering expert. And he's like, no, I'm a anti-money laundering expert. I was like, oh my God, the anti bit is so crucial. He's an anti-money laundering expert. Just the skills and everything that he has in his background now in the position of Executive Director of Fintru. I can't do him justice introducing himself. I want him to. Welcome to the Dig Podcast, Greg.
Thanks very much, Caroline. Delighted to be here.
I'm delighted to have you, and probably, I don't know if our paths would have crossed only for University of Ulster, so I'm so glad to have met you and to find out a wee bit more about Fintru. Now, when I was looking it all up, it's pretty complicated to understand what you guys do. Can you give a brief overview for people in the room and also listening? What is Fintru and what does it do?
So Fintru are develop technology-enabled solutions for investment banks in the space of compliance, risk, legal, and that sounds quite complicated. But investment banks. So these are not the banks you would get in your high street, down in the town centre here. These are the big trading banks you get in the city of London, Wall Street, and the Square Mile in London. So they're the big global investment banks that trade stocks and shares and derivatives and fixed income. So those are very big, complex organisations, and they have a lot of regulatory obligations that are very complex and very difficult, and are growing and changing all the time. So we assist them with overcome a lot of that regulatory obligations. And we work very, very closely with them. We help develop solutions to help them overcome those, because they're very difficult for the banks to do.
Okay, it's like a pretty big deal. What you guys are up to there?
Well, anybody knows anybody banking. Banks have been in trouble in the past, So a lot of what we do, and our space has come out of the 2008 banking crash. So. The global banking system basically crashed in 2008, and there are all sorts of reasons behind that. But controls were a big part of that. How banks were being controlled, how they self-controlled, how they were regulated. And because banking is so tied in with the global economy, it basically runs and finances the global economy. A bank collapse is a global disaster, really. Everybody's job's at risk if banking collapses. So regulators at that point, developed a lot of regulations came out around that time around banking to ensure that couldn't happen again, and that put a lot of obligations on the banks. That there, along with increasing growth of financial crime, which is a huge area in banking, money laundering, as we mentioned there, and bribery and corruption, all those kind of nefarious activities, they all go through the banking system. So the banks are under obligation through regulations to understand what they're dealing with, who they're dealing with, what's going through their systems, the money flows around the world, who they're dealing with. They must understand that now. Or they get fined, and it's huge fines to them, but also huge reputational damage to them. If they're on the news that they have been dealing with sanctioned countries they shouldn't be dealing with. That's very, very, very bad for the banks. And if you Google banks, you'll find nearly all of them been fined at some stage for these types of things. So that's created a huge industry of controls and risks and management. And that's a really growing area for banking. And that's the space that Fintru work in. We work with our clients to help them overcome some of those issues and problems. And we work very closely with them to make sure that they're compliant and as risk-free as they can be.
Unbelievable work, and thank God for people like you that can do stuff like this to protect that. So, how many people does Fintru employ?
So, at the moment, Fintru employ about 1,400 people. They're 10 years. This is our 10th birthday is next Friday. Yeah, okay. So we're 10 years old next Friday, and we've grown rapidly over the last 10 years. We employ 1,400 people across sites in Belfast, here in Derry, LDerry. We have opened recently sites in Porto and in Letterkenny, just across the border, about 30 miles away, Letterkenny. We also have offices in New York and London and Maastricht. So we're growing rapidly. The sector we work in is grows and continues, the banks continue to have problems, regulation continues to grow, so it's a huge market. And you know, the potential is absolutely massive. So we work within that space, and our growth plans reflect the size of the market itself, which is huge.
So to employ and work with that amount of people, the last day that I was here and on a recent Zoom call, I met someone that works in Fintru. Keith, isn't he here today? Yeah, there's Keith. Everybody probably in the room knows Keith. Yeah. So every time I heard you speak here the last day and on the Zoom call, you talked about how great it was to work at Fintru and the culture. And sometimes when you think of an organisation of that size, you maybe would be under the illusion that, you know, the people, that wouldn't exist, or that, you know, it wouldn't be as personable as it seems. So culture is obviously very important to Fintru, and looking after the people. How do you do that on such a big scale, or even on a small scale? How do Fintru, nurture that cultural aspect of their team?
Well, Fintru, you know, in global terms, is still a small company. You know, locally they're a big company, but you know, those cultures and values were there from the very start by our founder, Darren McCarthy. And really, it does come from the top. You know, the culture has to come from the top, really, initially, to say, kind of set the standards and what we want and what the values are. Some businesses can play at that, you know, they can have your values up on a wall and something, but you actually have to live and breathe them. And I think the thing for us is we live and breathe those values. And, you know, people want to work in organisations nowadays that reflect their own values, increasingly so. The days that people just work and that was your job, you go home. I think that those type of jobs still are out there, obviously, but I think people increasingly want to work for a company that reflects their own kind of value system, and we're progressive values. Our quality agenda is very big. We work very hard on that. Inclusion and diversity, those are all things that we work very hard on. The eco side. And we do it because we believe. We're not doing it just because we think it's a good, you know, because it looks good. You know, we love those values. And I think people, when they're working for you, will always look for genuineness. You know, they'll soon suss out if you're not really genuine at it, if you're only playing at it. So we work those values all the time. We have committees that look after each of those areas. They're very active committees. They're made up of all the employees. We rotate them. You vote to get on them. They're chaired by local people. And they come up with the ideas and the solutions that we're trying to do across those values, and we find that it really works for us. It's what we want to do anyway, and our employees like it, because a big thing nowadays in employment is retention.
Yes.
And it's okay hiring people, but you've got to retain them. And if people don't like what they see we're in a business, don't like the way it's been run, or you know, they'll leave.
They will.
You know, and they can leave, you know, if you take somebody in our world and they're with us a year to a couple of years and they get really skilled at what they're doing in the jobs that we work, those are highly employable people. You know, they've got really attractive skills that other employers want. So we have to make sure that they feel fulfilled, they feel valued, they feel part of something. And if you get that combination right, then you will retain your people. Simple as that. Yeah,
and there'll be a lot of businesses listening on the podcast that are really trying to see how they, you know, nurture their team and get that culture. So that's good advice. It has to be genuine, first of all, come from the top.
You can't play at it.
Can't play. And you just went interrailing. Was that recently?
Yeah. So.
See, I researched. I did.
Yeah. So another good thing Fintru do is another example of how we try to be creative, and you know, so. If you with Fintru 5 years, you get a month unplugged, we call it Fintru Unplugged, we call it, and you can take a month. This is top, you know, you get your normal holidays, but you get a month, and you're supposed to disconnect from the system, and you know, make sure you're not available for work, and do something really that you wouldn't normally do, that you want to do, and take a chance to do it. So I took a chance because when I was your age, I didn't interrail, I was very bored when I was young. And,
you were what?
Very boring. Didn't interrail, just was straight into the world of employment. But so I took the opportunity where I always wanted to interrail around Europe, and I did that for a month, and it was great. And my good wife let me do it, so I was away for a month.
You went by yourself?
I went by myself.
What?
Jumped on a train and went around Europe. It was great. Loved every moment of it.
But that's amazing though, because sometimes, you know, you do get caught up so much in the world of work to think that your employer is giving you that kind of opportunity, as you said, to do things you've never done or find a peace away from work, because work-life balance can be so, don't know if it really exists really, but you know, we are always struggling to find ways to find that kind of happy place. So that's amazing. 5 years, guys, so if you stay with Fintru 5 years, we can all go interrailing together. Amazing. But I just loved that whenever I read that so it shows that it's not just all talk, it's action with Fintru. They actually do put systems in place to do this.
Absolutely. Your work-life balance is, you know, it's something that's really important. Again, you know, if people's work-life balance is out of sync and they don't, you know, people self-select, you know, they'll choose not to do that, they'll choose to go elsewhere, you know. So look, we work hard, you know, we objectives and targets like every business has to meet, but it's very important to get that balance right, because burnout is a real thing. You know, if people are overdoing it in too many areas, you will see burnout and people become less effective. You know, there's only so much human being can do. You know?
Yeah, I think people are working harder than they've ever worked for some reason. Maybe it's the online space and the way digital.
Well, when I was young, which is a long time ago, compared to the people in this room, we were always told technology is going to free people up.
Say that again.
Technology would free people up with all spare time, but that hasn't happened.
No.
The pace of change has got more rapid, and people are busier than ever. So technology hasn't done that.
No, it hasn't.
So far.
So we have to find ways ourselves and our work and our employers to make sure that we are looking after ourselves. So I loved to see that and to hear that about Fintru. This is all new to me too, because I didn't know what your company was about and what you do, but I loved that, and it was Keith that shone a light on that at the start, so thank you, Keith. So the collaboration with the Talent Hub, like collaboration is a buzzword, I know out there, some people use it, but are they really doing it? You guys are collaborating with the Talent Hub. What would you say to people listening, and people in the room too, like students can collaborate in lots of different ways with different people, but how important is it for organisations to collaborate with the likes of the university? What advice would you give?
It's absolutely vital. I mean, it depends what business you're in. I mean, we're a graduate-based business. We bring in a lot of graduates each year. The type of business we do is very graduate-focused, you know. So the supply of, you know, of good graduates who not just have the academic side, which you always assume they've done the degree, but also have the kind of insight into what work looks like, what it's like to be in a working environment like Fintru. That's really, really important, because like you take us, I think we've hired about 100 graduates this year, you know, so the supply of that annually is really, really important, because we can only grow where the talent is, you know. If the talent is there, we just can't grow, you know. We need that supply so we can hire more people, take on more contracts, do more jobs, you know, get new buildings, you know, that's all linked together. And the supply of talent feeds into all that, and it's absolutely vital. If you don't get that right, you know, you're going nowhere fast.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of businesses saying, I just can't find the right people. We just can't find the right people. But what are they actively doing to find the right people? And you guys are doing that, and all the businesses in the room today as well. Yeah,
I do find the right people are out there, you know. So the other thing, so we have a huge focus on it. We also have a huge focus on our learning and development. So our internal learning and development is a huge thing. So when you come into Fintru, it just doesn't end there. You're learning as soon as you come in the door, because obviously you have to learn skills to do the job, but also developing yourself as a person and how you go to the next stage. We always talk about the next stage, you know. So you're at this stage now, you've come in, how do you get to the next stage? What are the tools you need to do that? What are the skill sets you need to do that? So we've got a really, you know, very good learning and development team. And we spend a lot of time doing that, because again, you need the people not just to be recruited, but we need them come up through the levels. You know, so they come up through their abilities, they get more skilled, they become more valuable to our client because they're more skilled. And that's just the way it works. An economic model, you know, it's about, at the end of the day, it's a commercial model. We don't apologise for that. We're there to make a profit, make money. We want the people to enjoy the work, but we're a business, you know. So you need those skills coming in, you need those people coming through and taking the next stage, because they become much more valuable to the client, much more valuable to themselves. Yes. And their value goes up as well. So, you know, it's really a win-win.
And that was kind of leading on to my next thing that I was going to say. Like, you guys together, the Talent Hub and Fintru, are nurturing and elevating like the leaders, future leaders that are in this room now. And like you sort of touched on that there, how whenever people come into your company, how do you elevate them then by learning and self-development and all the things you've just talked about? So I think there's a lot for people who are listening on the podcast as well about once someone starts working for you, it's your responsibility to help them move through the different, find their way.
And you're always looking for future leaders, you know, and leadership isn't just what you think it is all the time. You know, if you're in a team and the team's struggling and you're kind of stepping up to help and you're assisting your colleagues and things like that, you know, those are leadership skills, you know. So you look for that early on in people and see people potentially go to the next level. And also they've got their own ambition to do it, you know, because you can't do it for people, they have to want to do it themselves. But you have to show them the pathway and you have to give them the tools to do it, and that's really where L&D function comes in.
Yeah, and a lot of people stood up today and said, I'm ambitious, I'm determined, I'm resilient, and they're all the things you definitely need to be any kind of team member or leader. So there's definitely plenty of people in the room today ready for action, right guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like we're only scratching the surface. You have to come be a guest again, Greg, because I'm on a 20-minute deadline here from Aisling. But we're going to open the floor up for any questions. If anyone wants to ask anything.
At this point, a student asked a question from the floor, but I'm just popping in here to tell you what it is because the sound wasn't right for you guys to pick it up. So they asked, what are you looking for whenever we are in our interview? What will make us stand out? And they put that to Greg.
When I was talking about that earlier, it's when one of the things to do when you're actually interviewing people, it's you're trying to make a decision, you know, based on a 20-minute engagement or half an hour engagement with somebody. So at the end of the day, you're selling yourself. So what you've just done this morning, that 36 pitch you did there, is really important. So obviously some people, you've done it for the first time, you didn't feel very comfortable doing it, you felt nervous about doing it, you maybe did it brilliantly, or maybe sat down and thought, I could have done that better, you know. So what you did there today was really good, you know, because you've got that chance to pitch yourself to an employer. There are some fundamentals, you know, like, so the number of people that we will interview will ask them, you know, well, what do you know about Fintru? And they'll just go, well, nothing really, or I don't really know what you do. You know, a cursory 1-minute glance at our webpage will tell you exactly the fundamentals of what we do, for instance. So a bit of preparation, you know, will take you an awful long way. You know, a bit of prep, understand the business that you're applying for, understand the reason, you know, as much as you can outside, kind of what they do. You know, probably their values on the website, what are their values, that kind of thing. Look at, you know, if they've won any awards, kind of understand that. Because you won't get asked that question, you'll get asked, well, what do you think we do? And if you sit there and go, well, I don't really know that. You know, the next person up will say, well, I understand Fintru, a regulated company, work for banks and blah, blah, blah. They don't have to know it in any great detail, but you immediately sit and go, well, that person took 5 minutes to look at our website and understand what we do. Immediately that marks you against the person that does. And it can be quite shocking, the number of people that don't do that basic thing. So that's one thing. The other thing, as I say, is if you're doing it, what I would say to anybody that's doing any work-related stuff, that always helps. You know, if you're interviewing a student, and if somebody's worked somewhere or they've volunteered, they've done something, that's something you can always throw in the mix. That always marks you out a wee bit as well. So anybody that's done, like somebody said they did coaching with a team or something, wee things like that, do mark you out, because we totally understand that as a student, you've only done so much. But if anything gives you a wee bit of an edge in terms of what you've done, we'll definitely mark you out. You know, you work in team, you've done a bit of coaching, or you work in a retail shop or whatever. Those are things that for a second year student, you know, that will help mark you out.
Aisling from the Talent Hub then put the same question to me. How do our next generation of leaders stand out?
By being authentic, I think would be a really good way. Like everyone in the room today, we're bringing their own personal, a lot of people are bringing their own personal experiences, and I was like straightening up in my chair when I would hear people say, I did this, or I experienced this and it made me this way. I think that brings authenticity to you and your offering, and it makes future employers sit up and go, oh, they've had life experiences that they've learned from, and everyone does, but I think in a interview situation you can become quite corporate and feel like you can't share that. But in my experience of work and life, when you do bring those personal experiences and that kind of authenticity and real life voice to an interview situation, I hope I'm right in saying that, Greg, I don't know if that's the same in Fintru, but I believe that makes you stand out and makes someone say, goodness, they were willing to share their personal experiences, and it just makes you shows you for the person that you are. So authenticity, never lose that, no matter how nervous you are or how much you want to, really showcase what you have. Don't forget about who you are and your values, as Greg said, and I think that definitely elevates you as a leader.
Another question from the floor for Greg. What advice would you give to students who are starting in their placement and they're just started and they're trying to do the best they can do?
Who've actually started or in the placement, started their placement. Throw yourself into it. Very often people, you join and you're not too sure and you feel a bit guarded, and you sit back a bit, and it's okay to be a bit nervous, and that's what everybody is, But I would say, you throw yourself into it, embrace the company, whatever events they're doing, go to those events. Whatever they offer in terms of networking with it, because they will, in terms to do that, engage with it completely, kind of embrace it. It's because most of our placements we will go higher the following year, we get a good chance to see them, they get a chance to learn from us as well. So, be that person, and also, willingness to learn, it really is a learning experience over that year. You're going to learn all the time. And people get, we get that, you'll only know so much, and, it takes time and all that there. But if attitude takes you everywhere, I would much rather in a team I ran have somebody with a great attitude and less ability than somebody with great ability and their attitude isn't great. Your ability, your attitude, your willingness to learn, your willingness to work for a team. You don't have to be a star, you don't have to be brilliant, but your ability to work with the people around you, and because when you're running the team, you want that person, you're managing that person, you want that person to be, that they feel as if they want to be there. If you get the person that don't really, so really embrace it, really go for it, and just be willing to learn, because it's just a year of learning, I guess. Thank you.
And just for everyone listening on the podcast, to end the podcast today, and everybody sitting in front of us, I'm pure nervous too, just like all of you were when you were standing up, to be sitting here, and I didn't know a lot about Fintru, and that made me nervous, but like Greg said, the website was great for a learning tool. LinkedIn, going and finding out all the things you need to know, and not being afraid to ask. I know on the Zoom call, I was like, Greg, what is Fintru? And I think that's probably my leaving thought for everyone, never to be afraid to say that what you don't know, because no one knows till they know, and if you don't ask, you're never going to know. And then now I absolutely could stand up and say what Fintru does, and Greg, and also what the Talent Hub does. So opportunity, and never saying no to opportunity as well is my leaving thought. So thank you to University of Ulster and to the Talent Hub, and thank you to all the Dig podcast listeners for tuning in for this very exciting episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.